everyone, welcome back to Allcarnews, and we have been spending the past week in this 2025 BMW M2. So yes, the BMW M2 has gotten some minor refreshes for the 2025 model year. Not a full life cycle impulse, or LCI as BMW would typically call it, but we are seeing things like some revised interior elements, like new air vents. We have plenty of new color options to select from in the entire M2 color palette lineup, and we actually are seeing a new style for the color of these particular wheels. But the good thing is the BMW M2 still retains its core BMW-esque DNA. It has that rear-wheel drive powertrain, that wonderful twin turbocharged inline six up front, and that awesome, cool design that we still, I think, like today. So as always in this video, I'm going to take you all on a full tour of all the changes for the 2025 model year, what this particular BMW M2 is offering, why you should consider the BMW M2 as your daily go-getter fun two-door sports car over maybe even a BMW M4, for example, and why I think this M2 is still a fantastic vehicle, and it's been a great vehicle to daily actually over the course of this week. Let's go dive in. So of course, as we know, under the hood of the BMW M2, we have the very familiar S58 engine, which in this case, of course, is the 3-liter twin turbocharged inline six. No mild hybridization here, of course, and of course, it has a lot of nice engine dressing on it, a lot of chassis support in the M2 to give this thing a really rigid structure. And for 2025, we get a small, mild boost in power. We're now making 473 horsepower, and in the case of this 8-speed automatic version, we're getting around 443 pound-feet of torque. If you do opt for the zero cost, which is actually standard 6-speed manual, your torque is going to drop down, but thankfully the horsepower does remain the same. So that's a nice thing to note there. And of course, under the hood here, we're all very familiar with this engine as well as all those components under here. So I have a quick little glance over at this. Wonderful engine, love the exhaust sound, love the higher revving nature of the S58. But of course, you know, this is just around 10 grand more starting than the B58 and the M240, which you can get xDrive all-wheel drive if you do want that option as well. A little more of a softer overall experience than this BMW M2, a little bit tamer, but still radically quick. And with the all-wheel drive traction, I guess it could make a little bit more sense for a day-to-day basis driver if you are looking for that in the M2 or in the 2 Series lineup. But of course, this M2 is rear-wheel drive only, and like I said, 6-speed manual or that 8-speed auto. Weight-wise, we're coming in around 38-ish hundred pounds. Everyone's been seeing around 37 to like 3,900 pounds. So still one of the lighter vehicles in the BMW lineup still. And again, rear-wheel drive only, which I think gives this thing a really nice character on the roads. So what exactly is new on this 2025 BMW M2? Well, like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it's largely a lot of option stuff. So one of those options is this $3,000 BMW Voodoo Blue paint, which I actually think looks gorgeous on this vehicle. But like I also mentioned, there are plenty of other paint options for this 2025 model year, which is really opening up the customizability of the BMW M2. There's also some new individual colors. I believe there's some frozen kind of satin matte finishes as well you can add on, in addition to some of the more common base colors. But I think this Voodoo Blue, it's a little bit more of a flat style paint, looks absolutely gorgeous on this vehicle. But of course, styling wise, nothing really is different on the M2, and I think that's okay. I've actually kind of been a fan of the vehicle's looks since it came out, but as you know, this square boxy-esque styling isn't for everyone, so we still have those really cool looking, in my opinion, kidney grills over here. We have the M2 badge, really nice large air intakes on the side over here, and you know, on the M2, we're really seeing a lot of cooling capability on this vehicle as it comes out of the box, really ready for some performance driving. And you know, as you know, it is an M vehicle, not an M Light. It's always ready for some fun. Nice big power dome on the hood as well, and I always like the proportions of this latest generation BMW 2 Series lineup. Nice long hood proportions. I think we have a really classic, you know, rear-wheel drive sports car-esque design on the vehicle. Pushback cabin, nice long hood, really kind of nice sculpted body elements on the vehicle. We've kind of flared out fenders on the M2 as well. Overall, I think that this is a really nice package, though this one is coming in at around 84 grand. So from that $68,000 starting price, there are some options on the vehicle, like I mentioned, the paint, but we also are getting the carbon fiber package, which is around $9,900. So coming over to the wheel front here, we are rocking Michelin Pilot Sport 4S rubber, which is an appropriate, I think, day-to-day tire on this vehicle. Of course, you can go a little more aggressive if you want some more performance out of this thing for some more track focus use, but as we know, the Pilot Sport 4S is a wonderful tire. Staggered wheel setup on this vehicle as well. But let's talk about these wheels themselves, which unfortunately are a little dirty right now due to the horrible weather up here in New York this week. They were nice and clean when I got the vehicle at the beginning of the week, but I think these new silver style 930M wheels are actually quite nice. There are a few other finishes. They're like a dark graphite color and a darker color as well, but I think this is a really nice, tasteful touch. This vehicle is also optioned with the M compound brake package as well, so that means we're getting these red calipers as well as a little more of aggressive brake compound, and I love the brakes on this vehicle. You have two settings actually in the infotainment system, and I actually think both settings work really well. I've even tested some other non-full AMG vehicles, like a 53 style vehicle, and those brakes were so touchy and grabby in any setting I ever put it in. This was just like a relief, and they work really strong, really well, and you have a lot of confidence in this braking system. So I actually really appreciate this on the M2. And of course, behind these wheels is an adaptive suspension system, which you can adjust via the infotainment system as well, though I honestly would try to keep it in comfort most of the time, because even in that mode, it is still ridiculously stiff. Put it in track and those further settings, it gets even stiffer. So keep that in mind if you're looking for this vehicle, especially compared to something like an M240, which has a much softer suspension experience. Now, I'm one of those people that I think this design has aged well over time, especially this rear end design. It took a few years, honestly, to get used to with the really bold kind of 3D shaped LED taillights, but I honestly think it looks really good now. And I've spoken to a lot of people over the course of this week who have even just stopped to look at this car, and they like it as well. So I think that's a cool note. I like the subtle little spoiler on here. Of course, there's the new M2 CS with that crazy ducktail rear spoiler, which I think looks awesome. Over here, you also get a little quick glimpse of this carbon fiber roof. It has a little bit of a sort of kind of double bubble-esque design to it. Not really, but we have those kind of air strakes on it. Of course, we have our antennas up there as well. Coming down to the lower bumper area over here, I always love the quad tip exhaust on the new BMW M products. And now we have, I think, a standard blacked out finish on here, which looks really, really nice. Let's open up our trunk space, because the vehicle is still pretty usable actually, especially since there's no longer a convertible in this 2 Series lineup, unfortunately. But we still actually have quite a lot of trunk space in your M2. So yes, you can haul things in the vehicle. For example, I have a water jug in here right now, which easily fits in the back of this trunk, but we can fit plenty more things in here. You can even fold the seats down in the rear if you want to open up that cargo space to a little bit more storage. You have some side pockets over here as well. I don't believe the floor opens to any underfloor storage, but thankfully there isn't actually, like, chassis bracing and stuff taking up a lot of cargo space in the rear end of this BMW M2. But of course, that means no spare, so that is going to be something you need. No power tailgate as well, but thankfully, it's not too big and heavy to close, so that's an easy-esque thing to do. Okay guys, let's go hop inside the BMW M2 and see what we have inside. Of course, no new key fob for the current generation 2 Series, and I'm not sure if there will be a new key fob if we have a new generation gas 2 Series, but I actually still like this BMW key fob. I like the little M badges on the side of it, and it is still very functional. Of course, the new ones are a little bit more sleek. Of course, we have keyless access, and we can also unlock it by the key fob. Power folding M mirrors on this vehicle as well in gloss black finish. One little extra look at this awesome carbon fiber roof as well. I think this looks epic, and it helps to lower center of gravity just a little bit. Of course, the flush door handles on the 2 Series. We can lock and unlock the vehicle by that little button right there. Opening this up, nice solid door thunk as well. Love that on all new BMWs. Really nice solid sound. I think the windows are just making a little squeak there from the rain today. But of course, we have this wild interior now with the M carbon bucket seats and some revised trim pieces. So let's go hop inside and check that out. So getting in the 2 Series is, of course, pretty easy. Actually, we have a pretty wide opening. With these seats, though, it is a little bit more difficult, I may say, just because of these giant fixed side bolsters over here. Door panel wise, the latest generation 2 Series door panel isn't anything to really write home about. Shut the door up. Solid thunk there. We have this kind of trim textured piece over here, and this one is getting, of course, the fixed M color ambient lighting on the side door panel over here. So it's always going to be like this even when it's off, but it does illuminate at night, which is kind of cool. We have some stitch material around here and the older style generation of BMW switchgear, which I actually quite like. It's very tactile, still works very well, very solidly built. But here we have this awesome interior. So let's start it up and see what we're working with. Nice, powerful start-stop sound there. Well, off the bat, we have this optional, awesome Alcantara steering wheel here. I'm honestly not usually a fan of Alcantara steering wheels, just as over time they kind of get a little matted and kind of a little dirty looking, but this one just feels so nice. It's the same kind of thickness as the regular kind of leather BMW M steering wheel, and it feels really nice. It's like a squishy touch to it, and it is still actually heated, which is also a cool feature. I love the red and blue M stitching around it as well. That really makes it feel extra special. And of course, it has a carbon fiber surround to it as well, which feels really, really nice and looks really cool as well visually. A little M badge down here. And of course, we have our M1 and M2 buttons over here, which of course are configurable M modes. So I have this set up right now in a few different settings, and I also set this one up as well. But this one's so aggressive, we have to confirm it actually to kind of enter it. So you can see that pop up on the heads-up display there when I try to enter my M2 setting there, just saying that chassis stabilization and stuff will be limited. So that's kind of a cool touch there. Now this one's also giving us carbon fiber paddle shifters as well, which look really cool. Feel nice to actuate as well, which is cool. Of course, automatic headlights, automatic wipers, as we would expect in a BMW product. But we also are getting some newer style air vent controls over here. So as you can see over here, we have this newer style control for our air vents, a little bit of a different design. We don't have those weird like little under style vents just yet, but I'm not sure if this vehicle will actually ever get those. We also are getting a redesigned center console piece over here. So as you can see, same kind of stuff here with this redesigned vent control, very similar to what they just did in the LCI version of the 4 Series. Even though this isn't a real LCI, it's still getting some bigger changes on this interior front. But what this does mean is that the ambient light strip over here is gone. Instead, it's replaced by this kind of bath of ambient light underneath here. Still, of course, selectable colors, but definitely a different look for the vehicle. And as you can see, since we have the carbon package, there is just carbon fiber all over the dash, all over the center console, and it just looks absolutely beautiful in this vehicle. Now, with the M vehicle design and all the packaging, we are getting, of course, all the M skin on this iDrive 8.5 system over here. So it is iDrive 8.5, not 9, not 8. It's the in-betweener one right there, which I think is perfectly fine. It works really, really well with our digital cluster up here. Of course, we have a wide array of controls. So heads-up display is up there, works pretty well. Not the most advanced new BMW heads-up display we've seen in some of the other vehicles, but I think it still works fine. Decent amount of adjustment, but we actually have more adjustment in this screen, obviously over here. So we can kind of press this little button here and scroll through our content settings. And I like all the different M-specific unique things here we get. So we have our G-force meter, we have our power control over here, we have our tire temperature, which is honestly a great one to see, engine boosts, as well as temperature. We also have our setup screen to see what modes we're in, all that fun stuff. And of course, if we want to change our gauge design, we can go right over to our M modes over here. So that's really the only way to change the overall design in this vehicle. It's a little bit different than some other BMWs. We press our M modes and we have road, sport, and track. This is really kind of just adjusting all the safety systems and warnings. So this is a road view right here. We're gonna pop it into sport mode for a second and check out how it goes there. I think that's a really cool design. And of course, one more level, we go to track mode and it gets a little bit more sporty it can, but I have to activate track mode right there. There we go. Intelligent safety deactivated. It actually turns off our full iDrive infotainment screen right there, which is kind of cool. So you really focus on your driving experiences. And this is all older style, but honestly, I think perfect BMW interior control stuff here. So I love the trim here. The quality of everything feels so solid and well built. This is what you would expect out of BMWs. Open up the center console area over here. It glides back. 2 big cup holders. We have a USB-A port as well as a 12-volt socket and a wireless charger, though I will say this wireless charger does overheat my phone instantly, very quickly. I love this little panel over here so that they're still keeping some hard buttons in this vehicle. Nice physical volume knob over here for hazard switch right there as well, forward reverse track, as well as some defrost options right there, which is nice. I love the M design center console area that BMW does over here. So we have our unique M shifter over here, totally different than a traditional BMW shifter. It has this kind of metal casing around it. It feels extremely premium and well built. Leather. We have the 3 M colors and the stitching around it. And of course, we can adjust our shift intensity over here. So we have 3 shift intensity and automatic. Pop it over into our manual mode. We have another 3 shift intensity for our sequential shifting option. So it can get pretty aggressive actually on this ZF 8-speed. So I love how BMW tunes that. Easy button to put it into park there. And of course, our controls is a little bit different than a normal BMW shifter. So reverse is this way right here, neutral, and then drive, sport mode. And we can actually shift from here in an awesome normal way. So downshift this way, upshift towards us there, and obviously put it right into park, which is a pretty cool function right there as well. Electronic parking brake back here. We even have auto hold on the vehicle as well. And I love this little button right here to turn on and off our stop system. Since this isn't a 48-volt vehicle, it's a little bit more of an intrusive start-stop, so I like the option that we can turn that off really easily there. And thankfully, this vehicle is still getting all of the parking assistance options that all other BMWs get. We don't have the route following assist, and we don't get 360 cameras, but reverse camera is fine, actually, and the 360 parking sensors work pretty well. And it still has automatic parking and the backup assistant in the vehicle, so that's actually really, really nice. And of course, we have our M modes and setup buttons over here, so we have an exhaust button as well. Popping open our setup screen is entering a bath of endless options for the vehicle. So as you can see, we can change our engine settings from efficient, sport plus, chassis, steering, brake, and then to access our M traction control as well, we're gonna actually have to turn off traction control and this button over here, which then brings us to this 3 levels of settings here. So we have our MDM, we can turn it off to full DSC off, and that's going to give you the options here of your M drift analyzer, and then the M traction control setup. M drift analyzer is literally a drift mode in the vehicle. Of course, I'm sure we've all seen this. Gives you a score on how well you're drifting around in the vehicle, which I think is pretty cool. Control there, and of course we can go into our M1 and M2 configurations and set up all of these different things custom to those little buttons on your steering wheel, so you don't have to fiddle around with stuff in the setting all the time. And I am always a huge fan of the M skin of this iDrive. So 8.5 really just means we have these little additional touch buttons here to access our heated seat and steering wheel without having to dive into the infotainment system, and a little bit of a different home screen design, but with the M skin on it, it's already unique as well. So totally different design than the typical iDrive. We don't have those cards to kind of scroll out. We can't change the overall design of this display, but we do get this really cool M pattern and design throughout the software. So I love these quick access panels to our tire, engine, and setup information right there. Really easy to see. Media radio, personal assistant, route preview, and you can adjust all this stuff as well. Add some more widgets. You can hold, drag them around if you want to as well. If you want to readjust how these cards are laid out over here, that's a pretty easy thing to do. And of course, in our adaptive content, I love this little live display of the vehicle here. Of course, it still works with the turn signal stalks as well. That's a really cool function as well in the vehicle. So pretty easy to use stuff in this BMW M2. Nothing really in depth that's new in this software over here. Of course, we have our full app drawer in the vehicle. We can change our ambient light color as well to a whole bunch of these preset colors. So of course we can change it to flamingo, or we can go to ivory. If you want to be a little bit more bold, we can go to emerald. You can see this little panel right here changes, as well as some accent lighting over there, as well as that lighting that kind of bathes this whole center console area over here. I think it's a little disappointing that kind of killed the ambient light strips on the dash, but now we have this bath of lighting that kind of takes over the whole center of the interior. And of course, these panels light up on the side over here in this M color design pattern over there. So love it or hate it, this is the new kind of ambient lighting setup in the all-new BMW M2 for 2025. Coming to our center console area over here, we do have a armrest over here, which feels a little bit on the harder side. It has some squish to it, some stitching. I wish they could have did the M stitching colors on this one as well, but we do have a decent amount of storage space in here. One USB-C port, as well as some illumination, which is nice. So that's nice to have some actual storage in the vehicle. As it is, can be used as a daily. We do have a felt-lined glove box cover over here as well, which is nice. And of course, some actually pretty large pockets on the side of the door panels to kind of shove stuff in as well. Now getting in the rear seats of the BMW M2, of course, nice look at the M carbon buckets here. We have our M stitching on our seat belts as well, and even on the pole to get the seats to go up as well. So you just pull that forward and see the nice carbon backing of the seats. And let's see if we can actually fit an adult in the rear of these seats, because the last time I tried to get in the back of this Generation 2 series, it was an M240, and I found it actually smaller than the previous generation. Pull the seat back here. Now, thankfully, there are some giant holes in the seats. Oh boy. So it is currently crushing me, so it's going to adjust itself. Okay, so it is definitely on the tighter side back here. We have a speaker, a window. We can see the seatbelt, which is kind of cool. It has the M stitching on it. I think it's a really nice touch. Our own air vents, center console storage, I would say, a little bit of storage. And of course, we can see we can fold this centerpiece down here to access the ski pass-through into the rear of the M2 as well for some more storage, but it is not a space back here for some long distance traveling. I would say I'm very, very cramped back here. And the one thing that, of course, that I noticed on the last BMW M2 40,000 of this generation is that the headroom back here is just not good at all. The roof really does slope back a lot, and I can't actually sit completely back whatsoever. My back's all the way to the end of the seat, and I just can't put my head all the way back whatsoever, which is weird because I could in the previous generation. And of course, getting out, just pull that lever up, and the seat should power move forward here. A nice view of the carbon, but this is definitely a rear seat more tuned for shorter drives and journeys than some longer stuff. So one of the great things I really like about this vehicle is it really can be a daily. I honestly do now want to drive the vehicle with the regular seats, not these carbon bucket seats, because I have a feeling it's going to be a little bit less punishing. Though that's not to say that this M2 isn't just going to be punishing with the regular seats. It is a very stiff vehicle at the end of the day, so that is definitely something you're going to want to keep in mind. But going around town over here over bumps and everything, you can see everything is really kind of a little bit reverberated into the cabin in one way or another. It is, like I mentioned, pretty stiff on that front, and that is all great in terms of performance, of course. This thing is a corner carver of all things. It loves corners. It is pretty quick in a straight line, but that is not its main forte here. That would be corners and just driving enjoyment. This is one of the lightest M vehicles in existence right now, the most affordable full M vehicle still, and I think one of the more pure expressions of the BMW M brand in the lineup right now. You can get the 6-speed manual if you do choose to. You're going to drop down your pound-feet of torque numbers just a little bit, but the power at around 473 horsepower remains the same, which I think is quite nice actually. Carbon fiber paddle shifters, these are quite nice to use. I would say shift times and response is pretty good most of the time. Of course, you can adjust to that via your intensity selector, I guess you kind of want to call it, over here on the gear stalk. We have the regular 3 levels, and then we have sequential 3 levels, which is like a more manual mode. It does get a little aggressive in those modes, especially day-to-day driving, so I just mostly leave it in the 1 setting here. Brakes are just overall, I think, fantastic. Quick little acceleration here. Nothing too hard. Oh, very stiff suspension there. But I love the M buttons, M configurable modes here. It's one of my favorite things with the BMW M vehicles is you can really just set up these two things the way you want them and just quickly access them from the steering wheel and turn them on and off, switch in and out of the modes really, really quickly. It's one of my favorite features actually of a lot of BMW M vehicles these days. Some other quick highlights, I would say visibility is really good in the M2 as well. All around us, I think it's really great actually. No issues there. Big mirrors, great visibility of where the front end is and front wheel arches. And like I said, we're just driving around town here. It does the job really, really well. Yeah, this thing is a rocket ship. We're on Michelin Pilot Sport 4S rubber here, so honestly, this could be a little bit more of an aggressive tire on this car, and these just handle it really, really well, I think, with this vehicle. So like I said, it could be a little even crazier than the configuration we even have this M2 in right now. But grip is pretty good in this car. When we go to our setup pages, of course, we have all these configurable options. I love this page. It really is amazing once you get to use it and kind of play around with all the different settings in the vehicle, especially the M traction control. And out here on the highway, we have some other nice, more comfort features as well, such as adaptive cruise control in this particular one. So we have radar adaptive cruise control. So that's it, it's on already, which is really great. So you have that, again, that daily capability of the vehicle, and it still has all this amazing performance with some more, more comfort oriented features. I think that's a really nice combination with this all new M2. And like I said, it starts around that $68-ish, $69,000 price tag, around 10 grand more than I would say, an M240 stock. This one is configured well, a little bit north of 80 grand, so not stock for sure, but it does have quite a bit of options on it that I think I would like. Specifically, this adaptive cruise control package I think works pretty well. Again, if you're dailying it, doing some kind of road trip and you don't want to drive for a second, you have that ability to have that on there. Even the limit as well, which is a cool function the BMW does to limit your speed on a highway. But otherwise, it is actually quite comfortable on smooth roads. Pretty good damping and suspension on smooth pavement. I want to be specific on the smooth pavement. Once you get into the bumpy stuff, it's like a little bit stiff. But, this car, as a lot of these M cars these days, and a lot of other sports German vehicles, are developed on the Nürburgring, and which means they are developed for bumps. They're developed for all those undulations and stuff in the road. And all that really means is that this car can handle those kinds of environments really, really well without, being loose. So sure, there's some stiffness here and there throughout the suspension, but it comes in the turn of really great handling characteristics. When you are in a situation where you have to kind of drive in aggressively on a track maybe, and there's a little bit more of some broken pavement, it's going to be able to handle that really well. But of course, as we know, it can break loose and have a little bit of fun at the same time. So, should you consider the BMW M2 for 2025? Yes, I'm just going to go out and say yes. I honestly think this might be a more overall just fun vehicle, maybe a little bit more unique than a M3 non-competition. I specifically say non-competition because the M3 and M4 comps are wildly quick. And I also want to even say maybe in another league than this vehicle, but for a pure BMW sports car experience, I think this does a really fantastic job at really echoing that dynamic nature of that we all love of BMWs.